Welcome to the Epic Score Podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Shadid. My interview today is with Nick Phoenix. Nick first gained fame in the music composing world due to his work as a sample developer. His company, Quantum Leap, became known for products like Storm Drum and Quantum Leap Symphony Orchestra. These sounds gave composers the tools they needed to make great sounding music. I know because I bought them. Then Nick went on to create the very famous trailer music company, 2 Steps from Hell, along with Thomas Bergerson. They had an incredible run licensing music into some of Hollywood's biggest movies. And now he's working super hard as a rock and roll artist. Nick and I did a deep dive into his life at his studio in Los Angeles. I really enjoyed my time with him, and I'll see you next week back here in the studio. My guest today is Nick Phoenix. Welcome, Nick. How are you?
Well, thank you.
All right. Nick is a sample developer, a trailer music composer, and now you've been working as a rock and roll artist.
Yes.
My goodness. Anybody who's involved in the music world from the composing side must know the name Nick Phoenix, just from your work with Quantum Leap and then 2 Steps from Hell. It's really what an amazing run. Incredible. I want to start this by actually saying thank you to you. We'll get into this a little bit with the different phases of your life, but Epic Score hit a track that ended up being the theme to Planet Earth in 2007. And the intro drum was Thunder Ensemble from Storm Drum.
Okay.
It was that with a girl singing on top. Your drum made that intro. I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, wow.
That was so cool. You know what? I pitched it down an octave.
Right.
And just made it just rumble. But your products were just ready to go out of the box. They just had the sound. Let's start. How did you get into this industry? Where did you start?
So when I came to LA, I always had it in my head that I was going to write rock music. That was my thing. After a year of college, I came out and hooked up with a band, and we were actually about to get signed to Atlantic Records when the singer went to jail. He was from Beverly Hills and had been involved in the savings and loans scandal.
Oh no!
With his dad, and had stolen millions of dollars, and didn't tell anyone. Nobody knew. And he thought he was going to get off, and then suddenly he says, "No, I didn't get. I'm going to jail, guys." So that whole thing blew up. Anyway, I ended up coming back to LA and working in West LA Music a couple of years later.
The one on Santa Monica Boulevard?
In Santa Monica Boulevard, the premier. It's a funny story because I had no experience, so I lied my way in there. I showed up and said that I'd been working at a store in Connecticut called Brian Guitars, and just hoped that they wouldn't check because I was desperate for a good job. I got some terrible job when I first got out there, and so I'm working there, and I don't know what I'm doing, and but I love the gear, and I'm trying to learn, but I'm afraid the whole first week that they know that I'm an imposter, basically, that I really don't know and they're looking at me, and I think that I'm about to be fired any minute, and they're going to figure it out, or they're going to call this place and find out that I just lied.
You lied to us.
I learned a lot in the first week, and at the end of the first week, I sell this big system to this guy that came in that wanted some stuff, and I helped him, and he was really happy, and he bought this $50,000 studio, and that was it. And then I was.
You're in at that point.
I was in at that point, but then I found out like a year later that they did know. They knew the whole time that I was just lying, but they had a good feeling about me, so they decided to give me a shot.
How did they know?
Because they're all liars. You're all. They're all selling music gear. They're all just like not particular. It's just a little. The industry is a little.
Everybody just wants to go to the NAMM show.
Exactly.
Obviously
I'm kidding, but they're all liars. But you know what I mean. It's like there's a little leeway there about selling gear. It's a tough industry and all that. So. So then I was right the whole time. They were watching me, but anyway, so that's where I got started there. And then eventually I got really into all the gear, and I was selling a ton of Roland samplers because I knew a lot about them. So people would come in, they would ask for me, and I was selling, and they had a contest. So if you sold a bunch of their gear, you'd win a free, at the time it was this sample player, SP700 was the cool thing. So I'd won 3 of these things. So I'd started to accumulate this really cool studio at home. Eventually, a customer came in and asked, he knew I had told him that he asked to borrow my gear because he'd gotten this job to do the trailer for Karina, which is the Whoopi Goldberg movie. This is way back, in the beginning of the trailer industry.
What year would that be?
That would, I don't know, be 97, 6 maybe or something. I'm just guessing, somewhere around there. And then, so I said, no, but I'll do it with you. So we did it, and it was successful. We came up with this quirky comedy theme that it's actually, to this day, I've listened to it. It's actually, it's not bad. So
You didn't start epic.
no, it was like pizzicato, kind of like quirky, old school kind of quirky comedy music, and yeah, so that was it. And then we just did. I was working at night with him, and then I worked at Westline Music to survive. And then we got this job doing an alien autopsy show with this really cool guy named Star Price. I think still around doing stuff. I haven't talked to him in a bit, but so we get this show. It's a 2-hour-long show, and we write all this crazy, UFO, really fun stuff. They weren't too critical. It was a pretty smooth process. It turned out it was NBC prime time, so they broadcast this 2-hour show at 8:00 at night on NBC, and we're all excited about it, whatever. And then I forget about it. I go back to work, and then
That should be some good royalties.
I come home from work one day, and there's an ASCAP check, and I open it up. It's like the dream. I open up $50,000 ASCAP check. It's just like it blew my mind. I had no idea. I knew there would be some royalties, but I thought it'd be like a few thousand. I had no idea.
A 2-hour score.
$50,000 for and that was just the first check.
And that was your half.
That was my half.
Assuming you got half.
It was incredible.
So you do the score. Now you're concentrating on music writing, and you start getting into trailers.
Yeah.
But you also started getting into sound sampling. Which one came first? How did they work?
Actually, the sound sampling came first. It was always the same motivation, which was that I needed sounds for music I was writing. But when I was working at West LA Music, before I got into the trailer music and before I got my first job, I got fascinated with the sample industry had just started, and it was like Bob Clearmountain drums. There was almost nothing out there. And then there was news of Hans Zimmer guitars was coming, an actual sample CD-ROM that you could load into Akai and Roland samplers. And I was really excited about that, and they put me in charge of that very small department at West LA Music. But when Hans Zimmer guitars finally came out, I was disappointed just because I was expecting something different, because guitars are such a broad category. I decided I'd been writing some rock tunes with some friends who had great, cool guitars and amps and all this, so we're all into gear as well, that we would try and, with my Roland sampler, to create our own. So that was Quantum Leap guitar and bass.
Was that the first one?
It was the first one.
And how did you distribute that?
So I just made it on the Roland 760 sampler, and I heard about EastWest, and I went over there with it and just plugged it in and played them some stuff and said, "You guys want to distribute this?"
Right.
And they took my meeting, and they liked it, and they said, "Yeah, let's do it." And then
so this is the beginning of your relationship now with EastWest.
with EastWest.
And they're looking at you going, what else you got?
Yeah, exactly. So then it was pretty much concurrent, though, that very shortly thereafter was when I got into the trailer stuff. It's all happening in a very short period of time. So then I left West LA Music and then got more into the trailers. And also, it was always a symbiotic relationship because it was always about sounds that I thought I needed for my whatever I was working on. So in the beginning, it was the guitar because I thought I was going to be doing rock stuff. And then next thing I know, I'm in my other love. It's always the two loves, which is the orchestral film world.
So how did you start attracting and getting the trailer work? Because I'm assuming it was custom trailer work. It wasn't library work initially, right?
Yeah. So my partner and I at the time, his name was Fred Rappaport, we would just drive around town to the trailer houses. This industry was just starting. There were these trailer houses, and there weren't that many of them, and they were still sort of finding their way. It's kind of interesting how some of them turned into these big, money machine, really big companies that but in the beginning, it wasn't like that. It was a few guys that had rented, some room and were competing against other trailer houses. The studios would send out their film to a couple different places and see who makes the best trailer. And I mean, it's still like that somewhat, I guess, but it was small. And we would drive around and just be like, here's some music we're working on. What do you guys got? What, well, can we work on something for you, kind of thing. And that's what we did. And we would, we would do things on spec. And sometimes there were a few, I think this trailer park would hire us for jobs in the beginning. And they ended up becoming a really big company. At the same time, though, there was a connection. Ruben Nava had a company called Music Junkies. And so that sort of became the umbrella for us, and also for Jeff and Yo.
So
Immediate Music was immediately what wasn't Immediate Music really. It was they were just working with Ruben Nava, and they were kind of in the beginning, I think, more his main guys, Jeff and Yo, and then we are also working with him, and then eventually, everyone sort of went their own way, but that was the beginning.
Interesting.
That was Ruben was working. He was a music supervisor at Aspect Ratio, which is the other trailer house, and that's when he was one of the people that figured out that people wanted film score for their trailers, but it was not exciting enough. They could almost never find the trailer score that really was like condensed, big, epic, thunderous enough for the short, for trailers. So that he was one of the people that realized that this was a new industry. It was the new genre industry that was, developing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like before Two Steps from Hell even existed, I think I had seen some publicity on you or something back prior to that you had already been on like 600 trailers by then or something crazy.
From when I started up until like 10 years later, when Thomas and I formed Two Steps from Hell, I had done a lot. There was a lot of, there was a lot of licensing, obviously, because so in the beginning, Music Junkies there was a lot of little stuff too. I mean, it's still the same today, but they would use a lot of little segments. There'd be like 4 and 5 second chunks. So there were a lot of trailers where they would use 5 or 6 different cues of mine in some trailer. They would pay a lot even like for like drones in the beginning. Once everyone realized. I mean, it's partially my fault for disclosing all this on the music forum, for telling people, because I'm not really, my personality is not, I'm not really like the secretive or like keep it all to myself kind of type. So I would just tell people like, oh yeah, I'm making great money and doing all this stuff in the trailer. And next thing I know, there's like this movement of all these composers that are getting into the trailer industry.
Wasn't there a joke that like, what was it, $40,000 for a piano ping or something?
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody went, what?
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, but it was like $7,500 for a really good sounding drone, because they just didn't have anything. So like and that went on for quite a bit, and then for like cool drum, big epic drum stuff, which I guess was part of the inspiration for some of the things that I did.
So let's talk about Storm Drum. I referenced it at the beginning. Quantum Leap is developing sounds. I feel like Quantum Leap in those days was producing sounds that didn't need a whole lot of stuff to make it useful.
Yeah.
Whereas other things are recorded in a tight room, and all of a sudden, gosh, how do I work about the ambience? And this stuff is layered and EQ'd and compressed. And I met you the first time at the NAMM show in 2004, and you were doing demo of Storm Drum. And it was just like, where do I put my credit card? As opposed to needing, 10 reviews. I'm like, okay, is this really going to be worth the money? And tell me about the approach of something like a Storm Drum.
I first met Hans Zimmer in, 98 maybe. That was one of the lessons that I learned from him. He called me because I had put out a library called Voices of the Apocalypse. This was in the beginning of the trailer, before Storm Drum. Big choirs were a thing, and there was.
I have it.
Yeah. Okay. So there were no epic choirs, at that time, and so I sampled that choir for myself because it was too expensive and difficult, and mostly because of the time frame. I would have to do trailers overnight. So what do? If you need that. So I sampled this choir. I had the idea that if I sampled all the consonants and vowels, that it would be possible to do anything I wanted later. I didn't think about how that would actually work, but I just
marrying the consonant
I'd
onto
sample it, and I thought if I
sample
sampled everything separately, I would have everything. Of course, it's a bit of a pipe dream, but that's what I did. And but I got these really good LA singers that were loud, and I had the union. There's my dogs. The union let me use their union. There's this big union room, which actually sounds pretty good. The library was out there, and Hans called me. He got my number somehow, and said that I should bring it in there, and he wants to check it out. If he heard Voices Apocalypse, he thought it was going to be like, the sound of hell, kind of, whatever. I don't know. That's what he was looking for. And the reason for this, I find out, he goes, Nick, that sounds cool, it has a big sound, but here's my choir. Here's my personal, check out my personal choir. So he pulls it up, and it's the freaking London, choir in the hall, and it's not as aggressive as my thing, but it's got this incredible big sound. It's like, and it's like the low end is like just, it's a completely different level of what I'd done. So I understood
with a slightly larger budget.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. That was another level. I'm like, okay, so the best players you can get, the biggest, the best ever of everything actually matters. I think that left a mark on me. So that's, with Storm Drum, that was the idea. Like, I needed these big drum ensembles, and I'm layering all these samples, and I'm making these 20-track, loops of cool beats, with big drums, and but there were so few things out there, and I'm never happy, basically. And I think that's the common theme amongst a lot of us, right? And that's just keeps you going, is that you're never really happy with what you do. So
it's like the classic question: when is a song finished?
Yeah, right.
For me, it's like when it stops making me angry.
Yeah. So I realized there was nothing out there like that, and I went to the big room at Record Plant, and I knew a couple guys, and I found some other. So there were 4 of us, some amazing percussionists. They brought their instruments. I rented some things. I bought some things. Yeah, we did a bunch of performances, and then we all did the multi-sampled stuff. Playing together, because that was just something that I really wanted, because I already knew it had already been years of like making these beds myself. So I knew what I was going for. I knew what other trailers sounded like, and it wasn't like I thought like I knew better, because a lot of times I would hear other trailer stuff and other epic music or whatever film score, and be like, how did they get that sound? I was always never really happy with my big trailer tom sound. I was always striving to get. To this day, I'm never happy.
How did it lead to QLSO?
So QLSO is a really interesting story. So I've been doing now a few things with Doug Rogers at EastWest, and Gary Garrison had announced his string library. So what happened was Gary Garrison announced this library, and everyone thinks it's going to be the greatest thing there is. The way the potential seemed there, and it was at the right time, because there really wasn't anything commercially that was available that was really had the sound of a hall that was really great. So he, I guess, had meetings with Doug over at EastWest. EastWest was going to distribute it, and then last minute they were just about to sign a contract, I guess, and he pulled out and realized he could sell it himself, and he didn't want to have a distributor. He wanted to do it all in-house. So I happened to go into EastWest one day right after that happened, and Doug was angry. He's like, I sent him a contract. We were about to release this thing. He said he'd already created ads for him and done all this stuff. Like, he spent money, and he was like really ready to go, and then he pulled out. So let's do it ourselves. I know, because he knew I could. He's like, Nick, you can do this, right? I'm like, he's like, why don't you just do the whole orchestra? So I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
That had to be one of the first orchestras that was recorded sort of in place, with ambience. Ultimately, the platinum version had multi-microphone, it was 3 choices of microphones, if I recall correctly. I could only afford gold at the time with the one microphone, or the mix, or whatever it was. So that orchestra was ready to go, out of the box. The brass sounds, the rips, there was nothing like that out there at the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so that was, Doug made the decision. And there's certain things that he's really good at as far as the production or recognizing certain things. So, he just found Keith Johnson, who is a premier classical engineer, and kind of a savant and a really interesting guy. And he said, we're gonna hire Keith Johnson to do this, and he'd agreed to do it to get the sound right. And then we did it. I can say it now. At the time, we couldn't say anything, but it's the Seattle Symphony in Benaroya Hall, and so it's great players. And the interesting thing was we had a week to do the orchestra. The first round, that was it. To do the whole orchestra, I had a week. So basically, I had to have this philosophy, which was like, okay, we have to go and have to be, tell them, know exactly what I need to get beforehand in a short period, really plan it out, but also know what I can fix later, because I'd done enough samples to know, like, I can fix that later. If it's right in the attack, you can't. So if you get a good attack, but then you hear someone a little bit out of tune for a second, when it's a long sample, okay, I can edit that out. So sort of knowing that as I go, like whether I can fix things. The reason I bring it up is because they said that they had just done in a week, an entire week with Yamaha to create their new sound set for their keyboard and with the orchestra. And they said that they did a whole week and they whittled it down to a 4 megabyte sound set. That's what they got out of a week. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what a tragedy. Like we got the entire thing in a week so I guess, that was an accomplishment. I mean, they're great players. And then Keith Johnson's an amazing engineer. I mean, he does things like he's writing the EQ during the range of the samples, because that's what he does with classical music, where like when a soloist comes in, he'll jack up the high end on there just for a second so that you notice, these little tricks that he had. So he's sitting there, he's like a mad scientist with all his crazy gear, which I ended up blowing up some of it. But
what do you mean?
Well, I did. I was also getting into other stuff, so I wanted to impulse the hall, because I got into, I have these Spaces reverb plugins. I got into reverb, and I had bought the Sony sampling reverb. They had this crazy expensive sampling reverb unit, so I had that there. So we go in the hall. He would have speakers in the back of the hall that he would pump the music through to get more ambience. So when he does this in his classical recordings, when everyone's playing very softly, there's very little reverb because the hall needs to get excited. People don't realize this, that it gets very dead. If they play softly, there's not a lot of reverb. So he would, in the recordings, put more of the input from the close mics into the hall with these little speakers in the back of the hall, like super high fidelity, crazy self-made speakers to get, see, we use that trick there. So that's also part of why some of the softer stuff sounds better than maybe, other efforts. So I used his speakers. He said, oh, go ahead. So I put his speakers on the stage to blast out these crazy sweep. And we don't realize it, but the speakers are heating up. And next thing we know, we have a video camera and we see just like smoke pouring out of the the speaker. Look at this is at the end, so it didn't ruin the sessions.
At least the session's fine. Forget about the hardware. So as a sample developer, do you have an opinion about how AI is going to affect the sample development world from here on out?
First, I just want to say that it's very interesting that that AI has sort of infiltrated the creative world so quickly. It seems to be one of the first things that's been affected. I think maybe that's just my perspective, but that it seems like that. And something really needs to be done, because one of America's greatest assets, in my opinion, is entertainment, film, music. It's like our treasure, our prized possessions. And to let that be destroyed so easily with so many people in power who just don't seem to even have a concept of that is unconscionable. I just can't believe that they're not going to protect that, because that's just not, if they think it's okay just to boost all these AI companies and just worry and think that somehow that's going to be an asset that's more valuable than in the entertainment genre than what we have, than real content and creativity, is a huge mistake. I just want to say that.
So you talked earlier about that ASCAP check that showed up from your score. I feel like there's an erosion from every side of our industry. The streamers pay hardly any royalties at all, whereas the networks paid, really well. And a composer typically doesn't work 365 days a year. they can only garner a couple of projects. And so the world of royalties existed
Yeah.
as a way that somebody could be on this project and then on that project. But you have this erosion now. The streaming platforms pay very little, if nothing. And then you have AI on the front end potentially coming in and can just do it anyway. And so there's an erosion on the front end of not even being able to get a job.
Yeah.
And then if you do, the royalty structure is being eroded. I don't know where that keeps going for all of us.
Right. I think it's a concern because it's similar to a lot of things that seem to be happening where no one is willing to fix anything until it crashes. And the crash in the entertainment industry, or let's say for composers, will be barely even noticed. So, but at some point, I think maybe somebody will realize that creativity has been thwarted and that that something is wrong, and then there will be a resurgence, and there'll be a renaissance of sorts, hopefully. But it's upsetting in that I think that it doesn't look good. I don't see it getting better, really. It's probably just going to get worse for a while. I don't know.
The CEO of Ford, and he's not the only one, came out a number of months back and said, half the white collar jobs, and I'm going to put artistry in white collar, it's definitely not blue collar. Half of those jobs could disappear. And I looked it up some time ago. There are 70 million white collar jobs. So that statement is saying 35 million people are going to get thrown out. These numbers don't make sense. What is unemployment if 35 million people are on the street?
Well, in the past, this topic has come up in times in history when the Industrial Revolution, there's been a whole bunch of different, and it's always sorted itself out because the jobs move into other areas and it's never been a problem. So people are saying, it's not going to be the same thing now. It's not going to be a problem because it'll move into new areas and it's all. However, everything is accelerated these days, right? There's this curve of just the incredible innovation and things are changing at an exponential rate. So, can you adjust for that? No, absolutely not.
I don't think humans can adapt quickly enough.
It's too fast.
By our nature, we just don't adapt that quickly. Right. A computer can adapt instantly, and we can't. Okay. All right.
Anyway, so in relation to your question about virtual instruments. So obviously, my complaint about some of these apps and so forth that create music for you, where you can type in a prompt and they create music. Well, number one is just I don't really like the concept. Obviously, I want real music from real people, but at the same time, these models are being trained. They're stealing from everyone. I mean, they can say whatever they want. They're stealing bits and pieces, fragments, and putting it together from existing music, and they're stealing. It's just a giant thievery, and I really wish that all of the music entities out there that have any power, all of the music libraries, all should just be suing all of these people. I'm not for lawsuits in general, but they need to be suing all these companies, ad nauseum, because they're just taking from everyone and calling it their own and profiting off. So for virtual instruments, the idea that they would do the same thing, that they would steal fragments from existing music out there and put it into a virtual instrument and call it their own. When we created our virtual instruments, we did everything from scratch. We paid the musicians really well. Those virtual instruments, in my opinion, were not destroying an industry. They were kind of helping it, even though the first instinct, a long time ago was that, this is going to destroy the industry, when in reality, people cannot afford these, orchestras and whatever anyway. So it was actually just, it was sort of helping the industry along. And then big projects where people had the budget, they're recording live players anyway, because it's easier, it sounds better, so it actually wasn't, it didn't destroy anything in my opinion. So with the virtual instruments, I think it might be okay to use AI technology because AI itself has been around for a long time. It's not like, that it's something actually new. It just has got way better. to create something, because you're just using the tools at hand to create something so someone could play something on the keyboard that's better. And if you're not stealing the content, there's nothing wrong with that. You're just making a better virtual instrument. So for instance, I'm now thinking about doing a project that is AI based. We're going to create our own sample pool. We're going to do the same exact thing, just a different way, but as we've always done. We're going to create all the content ourselves and then just use AI to look at that content and repurpose it so that it flows better when you play it on the keyboard.
Will this be a Quantum Leap thing, or is this a new company?
Well, Quantum Leap technically is under the EastWest umbrella. Always has been, and I've kind of steered more and more away from doing that stuff because I'm more into just making music these days. But it would be it's an EastWest, an EastWest project.
It would be an EastWest.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the world of the trailer music that you're probably the most famous for. How's that? Two Steps from Hell.
Yes.
How did you and Thomas get together, and what was the vision? What was your part? What was other people's parts? Tell us about Two Steps.
I've been doing trailer music for quite a while, and I wanted to step it up a little bit, and I had created a company with BT in 2005, and we put out a CD that was pretty successful. And my brother was doing the PR for us, driving around town, the trailer houses and all that. But BT was too busy. He had all this stuff going on at the time. And it wasn't necessarily my, the electronic side of it was not really what I was so interested in. So there was a forum called VI Control, which had a lot, maybe 50,000 composers on there at the time, and
I was on it,
and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was, it was like a renaissance. It was just all these new products were coming out that people needed that didn't exist before, like the orchestra and like other people, all kinds of stuff. And, everyone's trying to figure out what to buy, and it was really an interesting time. And there's a lot of interesting conversation going on, and a lot of, big name composers were on there. So I met Thomas because he had some comments about Quantum Leap Brass, which was kind of like a big band orchestra hybrid anyway. It wasn't full on, orchestra, although it was definitely intended to kind of cover that, but I didn't go all the way because I was sort of trying to cover everything, and I still didn't have quite the experience and knowledge at that point to really nail an orchestral brass library, all the way. He was complaining about it, and we were fighting on the forum, basically, and he'd put out some some recording of a trumpet playing like a little line or whatever, and basically said, this is what a sample should sound like, kind of thing. And people were like, what is that? Is that a recording, or is that you actually playing the keyboard? And it was all a bit murky. So anyway, they were fighting back and forth a bit, but then I guess what happened was we both realized that we were kind of similar, that we both were kind of competitive and, were passionate and whatever. So we start talking, and then I brought him over to help with demos for the orchestra.
You brought him,
from Norway.
You flew him to the States.
Put him in my friend's apartment who was out of town. And then Doug at EastWest set up a little studio for him so he could make demos for the orchestra. So that's how we met. And then I guess he asked around about me, is what I found out later. And so, we formed the trailer company because I recognized that there was such a talent there. So that's how it started. And then we just started, I had all these connections at different trailer houses, and we started doing scores, and then we're just pumping out a lot of music and just going around saying, here's a CD, like literally burning CDs and saying, here's some new music and giving it to people, and, got going like that. And people started using stuff.
I had an interview with Yoav Goran from Immediate Music. We talked about sort of an inflection point, which was 2004 Spider-Man 2. Two Steps was definitely successful right out of the gate. 2006, Epic Score, and Two Steps, I think, launched within a month of each other, ironically.
Yeah.
You guys were successful right from the beginning. But there was a moment that you guys hit the public's consciousness big time.
Yeah, so, we did well right away, just because of, I'd already been doing it for a while, So it was basically, I could get people to listen to stuff, and we had, there was, I mean, Thomas was probably writing, some of this stuff before we even started. I don't really know, he does amazing things. So we had good music from the start, but in 2009, well, actually what happened was I knew J.J. Abrams from my kid's school, so we were kind of friendly, we talked here and there. And so I gave him our latest music. At one day he said, come over to he had his new production house, and I gave him our music. And we had no public album out at that time. It was just a burn CD. And next thing I know, he asks me to score the second trailer for the new Star Trek, the big new Star Trek movie. So that was really excited, and I did that. Yeah, it came out great, and then trailer number 3, he used Thomas's cue, Freedom Fighters, for the trailer, and it's the whole trailer as well. The second trailer was the same thing. It scored the whole trailer. So it was like back when it was like a dream situation. It doesn't happen often where you get to do a whole trailer, and which just always blows my mind. Like it seemed to me like it was always the trailers that were one cue, that were like this theme thing that happened, that were always the memorable, the most impactful, that worked the best. Like I could just never wrap my head around this like hodgepodge. I know why they were doing it. They're trying to attract different groups of people, whatever, but I never really understood.
The way I understood it was the production company who made the film would actually give multiple trailer houses a shot at it. And then sometimes what ended up happening, they liked the intro from one house, the middle part from another house, and the back end from a third house. And so all of a sudden, the music was really a mishmash at that point. Oh, you know what?
Yeah,
this is what happens
I
sometimes.
get it. So that third trailer with Freedom Fighters in it, they measured it the most successful trailer, as far as they knew, that had ever come out, as far as people watching it, rewatching it.
I remember people went crazy. That thing blew up. You guys were front and center on that thing.
Yeah. And then people started asking online, as they do, online becoming more and more prevalent, that who did the music. So there was that, and then there was also a couple of video game trailers as well. So we got kind of into the gaming community, and then before we knew it, there was this big following. It's just suddenly there was a following, and then what happened was, on YouTube, people started putting our music on their videos, and then everyone else, as far as we knew, was putting stops on these videos because people were just making videos and using everyone. So all the big artists, rock, pop, film, they were all putting stops on these videos. Like, you can't just use our music on your videos. And we just decided to let it go because we thought, it's cool, we're honored, great.
We did the same thing. I never stopped a single person from.
That was smart. That was the right decision.
Absolutely.
Because it just spread like crazy. And then we put out our first album, Invincible, as a compilation.
And you guys were doing what, apps, like a music app? Didn't you do some kind of app for the iPhone or something?
Yeah, we did an app. We knew someone that said, I can do an app or whatever. And it was like, why not? And then it was like, you just pay a certain amount. So we sold a bunch of this. And
then it starts moving up to concerts.
Well, yeah, we did one concert at Disney Hall, which we put on ourselves.
How'd that go?
It was great. I mean, that was an interesting thing because it was a shame that we were afraid. We didn't know how it would go. We did it all ourselves. We just put the whole thing together. And last minute, it got a little dicey. Thomas was almost like going to pull out, because there were some things that weren't great. But we did it. And the thing was that the union, we said, we don't know how this show is going to go, but we would like to film it. And if it goes well, we want to put out a video. But the union didn't allow us to do that. They said, you have to pay us in advance for the video, regardless, because it was, I guess they didn't trust us, that we're going to just, obviously, we're not going to just put out this movie and then get sued. So they didn't allow us to film it, and we were afraid. We just had no idea what the concert was going to be like. So we didn't do it because we were like, we're not going to give $200,000. We have no idea what's going to happen here.
And there's no iPhone footage?
Yeah, no, there's not really. There's a couple little, not really. I don't really know. We got a good sound engineer, and I don't really know exactly how great it sounded out, but I think it sounded pretty good. The performance went really well. should have made the video. It's really sad because it would have been everyone in the orchestra would have been paid again. They all lost out because of the union. Just it's
a shame.
It's a shame.
So all this business stuff, from being a sample developer, trailer music, doing it on your own or with other people, then within Two Steps, and all this business stuff. From where I sat, I didn't know you very well.
Yeah.
But from where I sat, this Nick Phoenix guy's got the business side of this thing figured out. Does it come naturally to you? Is it just grinding and learning as you go? I mean, the business side, tell me about it.
Yeah, I think it's all, obviously, things are never quite what they appear. A lot of it was just driven by me wanting to do the best I could and being a workaholic, and then having good partners. So, EastWest was the biggest sound company, and Doug is not really so involved in the music sampling side, but has done some really smart things business-wise. I think just the fact that I just got lucky in the fact that because I had such motivation and kind of knew what other composers were looking for, because I was doing the same thing they were doing and I needed these sounds, and I, for some reason, decided that I was gonna make those sounds where most other composers didn't think to do that. They, for some reason, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I make a lot of mistakes in business, and I'm also, I found that in my relationships with people, it's a really sad thing. I'm very sort of positive, optimistic about things in general, which probably helps me. At the same time, I found, which is really a sad state of affairs, that the people that I were most generous with, it kind of backfired sometimes. I would give people, there were some people I gave half of my, the proceeds for one of my libraries because I felt they could be really helpful, and I wanted to help them. They were friends. They ended up fighting with each other about percentages, and it was terrible. And I ended up doing 90% of the work. It just was. I've had this happen quite a bit, but I'm not going to change my attitude that, I want to be fair to people and everything. It's just that I've had that a bit of that experience, unfortunately, but in business. So I've made mistakes, and with the Two Steps from Hell thing, I had been doing it for a while, and it's the partner. Like, Thomas is incredibly hardworking. He also has some good instincts, and we're both working really hard. And I guess just the hard work and some good music and a few lucky breaks, it worked in our favor. And then there was a good decision. Sometimes it's just the right decision. My brother was taking care of the PR for our company, but he wasn't really qualified to do that. He was doing other things. He's an actor, and I recognized that I needed to transfer everything over to Extreme Music and Sony. Which was a big deal, and also right at that time the trailer industry changed a lot, and a lot of people came in, a lot of good composers like you, and were doing stuff, and it became a lot more competitive, and it became a little bit more business-like. And actually, that's not what Thomas and I wanted to do. Thomas recognized it earlier than I did, I think, just to make cool music and don't worry about the trailer stuff. I was concentrating on the business longer than he was, but we wanted to make really cool music, and because we recognized that there were all these fans that liked music, and it wasn't necessarily the big cue that was like really popular in a trailer that was kind of simple and had this big building dun 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 kind of thing that the fans responded to. Like, I had a cue that was a huge licensing hit, Master of Shadows. It's kind of simple, but they used it in 2012. It was all over the place. It made all kinds of money, but the fans never. I mean, they liked it. It's popular, but it wasn't that popular because they were more looking for the more intricate, emotional, more musical music. But the trailer industry wasn't. The trailer industry was looking for things that were not too iconic, things that, because the identity of the movie was something they wanted to control, and they didn't necessarily want a song that kind of says, listen to this song, listen to this melody, this is the identity of the movie. They didn't really so much want that.
It seems like in more recent times it went sort of two ways. They started trailerizing pop songs.
Yeah.
which I've never really gotten to that. Or they took really elemental parts and let the editors build up something from this groove and this drone and this bram and this really wild ripping sound effect and this thing, that thing, and they sort of made their own thing. So where is that leaving like a big sweeping thing?
Yeah.
How many concerts have you guys done at this point? How many have been done?
So we had in 2022, I think there were 12 shows, and then 2023 there were 14 shows, all in Europe, all across Europe, and we headlined the Wacken Heavy Metal Festival, if you can believe it.
Okay, tell me about that.
The promoter saw our concert in somewhere, Paris or somewhere, and decided that he wanted to do something a little different and thought that would be great. So I just want to understand this. It's a relatively decent sized orchestra of two steps that gets swept off the stage when you're done, and it's literally heavy metal afterwards? Yeah, well, so Wacken is a really great, well, first of all, if you don't know about Wacken, the heavy metal festival.
I don't know
it's very different from the US. The heavy metal scene in Germany is very friendly. Like if you ever been around, I've been to a couple shows like in the US, it's a little bit more hardcore. It's a little tougher. There are fights, it's literally
headbanging.
It's literally headbanging. It's a little edgier has been my experience. Of course, tons of nice people, but
it's not about the niceness, it's about that big intensity.
Sure. Germany's Wacken is not really like that. It's more popular across, you'll see a lot of families there. Metal is a little bit more generally popular. The people are just nice. I don't know what it is. It's different. So they never have any problems there. They never like fight. There's like so little, except for the rain. They have problems there. It's an outdoor festival. But the beautiful thing about Wacken is there are two giant stages right next to each other. There's some other stages. It's this giant farmland. It's like Woodstock. There's a giant farm. And there are two main stages. And so what happens is once one show is done, the curtain drops, and then they can set up for the next show, and then everyone just like shifts over, literally not far, to this other stage, and then the next band comes on, and they shift back. So we were able to pull off this whole orchestra thing to get set up, because we need an hour to get everything set up. Yeah. So we go there, and we're there all day, and it's just a scene. All these bands, there's a whole area for all the bands, like giant, because there's so many bands, and they're all you get these little cottages to stay in, and there's food, and you see all these metal bands, and I saw a couple shows.
But to be clear, you were the only, we'll call you classical. You were the only classical thing at that thing?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we adjusted a little bit. I mean, our show is a little bit rocky, or a little bit, it's pretty epic. It's pretty aggressive anyway, but that show, we adjusted even more towards that. So we go on. It's starting to rain a little bit too when we go on. But there's 65,000 people there. It's like headlining. It's 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday. Yeah, we go on, and they, right before the show, they're like, okay, the flames are going to come out from here. Don't step beyond this line, and I'm like, oh my God, what's like? Cause there's a bunch of things where I'm like, if I'm singing and I'm running around with the bass, I was playing bass on some songs, and I'm like, okay. And literally, I did forget. I literally forgot in the show, like about the line, because at some point I was just literally, there was no flames at the time, but I was walking around, and then I looked down, and I'm over the line. I'm like, oh my God, I could just get killed right now.
Barbecue Nick.
But yeah, it was amazing. And they had so I have a song called Fire Nation. They had these lanterns with flames coming out of them on the stage. They have the flames in front that shoot up, but they had lanterns that they just used for that song. I didn't even know about it. They're like in areas where it's safe, whatever. But we're playing, the song. It's kind of an epic ethnic kind of a thing. And all of a sudden I look around, there are these flames on stage like everywhere. It's really cool. There's some cool footage of it. It came across great. People were like, it's amazing. Like they're like, I don't think that would work in the US at a heavy metal festival. If we played there, I just have a feeling that they would not go, they would be like,
why are these guys here?
They all stayed, they all really cheered. It was amazing. And then it came off, they filmed it for German television or European television, and it looks really cool.
So 2022, Two Steps is starting to wrap up.
Yeah.
And we're moving into the rock era.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, I started a little bit before. It was right before COVID hit that I was doing my first album. I had done a project with Mickey Hart of the Grateful Dead, Storm Drum 3, which got some really cool instruments on it. It's a little bit less of the epic, and a little bit more ethnic, interesting kind of stuff. And he brought his whole collection down on a trailer, 18-wheeler, from up north, San Francisco. So I was doing with him, and that was a wild few days. And he was working on an album, and somehow he knew that I write. Maybe I played a song or something, or I can't remember. But he asked me to write some songs for his new album because he needed some more songs. He had lyrics from Robert Hunter, who's the famous Grateful Dead Jerry Garcia's lyricist. I was a big Grateful Dead fan, by the way, as a teenager. So this was all, cool for me. So I wrote some songs, but when I turned them in, he's like, "Oh, yeah, the album's already finalized." It's one of the typical things where he didn't really tell. He was just, I don't know.
I don't think you were given all the details.
No, yeah, it wasn't enough, time or whatever. He just thought, I have extra lyrics. Let's see what happens, and then I guess they had enough songs. Whatever, I don't know. But by the time I turned them in, but then some of those songs were pretty cool, and then I was thinking about putting out an album. So I contact Robert Hunter I said, well, Mickey gave me these lyrics and I want to put out an album. And he was already sick. He died not that long after. He was not particularly friendly about any of it because Mickey had given me his lyric. He didn't know me. He just gave someone his lyrics to write songs that he didn't like that idea, or his manager didn't like the idea or whatever. Anyway,
it wasn't you personally, it was the situation.
That's right. Yeah. I didn't know him. It was just, the situation was a little weird. It was whatever. It's no big deal. So rather than get into the whole thing and just, beg him or whatever, I just realized that I'm kind of I'm a pretty good lyricist, so I just rewrote the lyrics. And then I put out a little album with some friends of mine who kind of play like Grateful Dead music. It had a sort of a Grateful Dead kind of a sound, whatever. It was just, it was whatever. It was fun. But it got me thinking I should just once again try to write rock. As when I was younger, I was convinced that was my path. I was going to write rock music, and that was my love. But in truth, that none of the stuff I wrote was very good. That's why when I transitioned into my other love, epic orchestral film music, that I just forgot about the rock stuff basically because I realized I wasn't that good at it. But for some reason, after all the hard work, 20 years of just grinding and really getting better at, when I went back to the rock music, I found that suddenly I was good at it. Like I could just write a song. I can write songs. I'm not saying they're good necessarily, but I can write. You put me on a piano, I can just write. I can write a song any day. I don't have any blocks ever. Like I can always write a song. So I just started writing rock music and finding that I thought some of the songs were good. And as most people are, I'm self-conscious about my voice, but I feel like my voice, once I did it for a while, I got better. I feel like I'm happy with my voice. The way I sing is I don't really sound like anyone exactly, and I kind of sing naturally. Like I don't have a put-on voice like most singers, that are really good. They have a certain way they sing, which is it doesn't sound like someone talking. It sounds it has a certain affected kind of thing, and they find their super cool genre or something that sounds amazing. Mine's a little bit more straightforward, a little more natural sounding, but it's, I think it's, I'm happy with it. And I have a great backup singer, which really helps.
I've listened to a bunch of the tracks and I think you have a great voice.
Thank you.
And was Wide World, that was 2022?
Yeah, that was the second album. The first album was King of One, and it has some good songs. The thing is, I started to notice I have a tendency towards the slow. I've had this problem too with Two Steps from Hell, is that sometimes I'll write things that are not that upbeat or that fast or necessarily, tempo-wise. And just unfortunately, just the way that is they're just less popular. Like it doesn't matter how good a slow song is, just generally speaking, they're going to be less popular. So I started to realize slowly I should, be a little bit more upbeat. So Wide World was the second one. That title track actually did really well. It was actually Billboard. It was like 42 on Billboard. AAA, which is the rock chart. So I realized that I had some potential there.
You kind of went for it more in Andromeda on that one. You were pushing your boundaries with that track. I thought that was a really nice one.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I love that track and I think it's so original, and the way it has this build in the middle, and it's like I mean, the production of it is like, that was really tricky because it gets really big and it's not perfect, you know, in my opinion, whatever. The guy who distributes the tracks to like all the radio stations said also he loved that track, but he said, I can't do anything with this track, it's too slow. There's nothing I can do with this track, I can't. He said Wide World was just barely fast enough where he could do something with it. And so that was, I'm so glad he said that, because then I started thinking along those terms, okay, I have to, you know, up the tempo a little bit. The rock stuff, I'm still finding my way because I like a lot of different genres. So there's some of the tracks have a little bit of country influence, like the Grateful Dead did, you know. This album, it happened again, I just couldn't stop myself. There's 2 tracks at the end, but they came out, they're really strong.
And you're making videos?
Videos, yeah.
And you are doing some touring?
Well, that's the thing. My only focus is literally to get popular enough where I could go and play live shows. I mean, everyone in the band, they're all like famous musicians. They're playing, it's like a guy from Death Cab, guy from John Mayer, Tim McGraw, the guitarist used to be Alanis Morissette's. You know, it's like all I can't drag them around in some little van to some crappy, you know, gigs. It has to be like the real deal, right? And they want to do it, but they're not going to do it, you know, they're not going to.
They're not doing it for $100 a night.
No. So I need like, you need, and everything's so expensive. You need major success. So like 42 on Billboard, believe it or not, is just not even remotely close enough. You need to really have a hit, or in your top 10 kind of stuff to be able to then say, okay, now we're going to go out and tour and be able to do that with this in this situation. I mean, yeah, if you're in your 20s, you can do whatever, and but you know, that's not my situation.
Now, as a sample developer, and I'm sure you've nerded out over microphones and
Yes.
placements and this and that. Are you able to step away from that when you record the band and let somebody else engineer it?
It's a huge relief. Like the epic orchestral music is so much work. So, you know, I'm here and I'm alone. You know, it can be very lonely, as you know, and you've got like 100 tracks or whatever. You know, all this. You know, it's so much work, and then you know, and then never mind the fact that 2 Steps from Hell and my epic stuff, we always record live stuff. So sometimes we mix in some of the samples, but it's mostly live. So then everything has to be charted and then mixed. And there's so many steps, so much work. It's like one song, you know, could be in the end, you know, is like, could be one song, could be 2 weeks of solid work from start to finish of writing and all the whole process. If you just took one, it's so much work. And after writing hundreds and hundreds of songs like that, I mean, just add it up. It's just so much work. Alone in the studio a lot of the time, not when you record the orchestra, but you know, it's tough. So the rock thing is such a relief because I write the songs on the piano. I have an idea about what it should sound like. I make simple charts about here are the lyrics, here are the chords. I go in the studio with the band and I kind of play on the piano for them and I kind of say, you know, maybe it's going to be kind of like this, whatever. Maybe it's kind of this drum beat, or make a few comments. And they're all geniuses and they're all kind of producers themselves. And they've done all. And all, you know, next thing you know, 2 hours later, it sounds like this incredible song. And so it's such a relief. So I have an engineer who's a total rock engineer, and I do not mix this stuff myself.
Oh, there you go.
Because I don't want to listen to my voice 1,000 times over while I'm mixing. I'm going to lose my mind and I'm going to hate my voice. So I have an amazing a rock mixer who's better than me, and so it's so much better. It's so much more different and so much more fun than the epic stuff in that way, you know, in the process. Like we're in the studio together, the band, they're all really funny, you know, we're having a great time. They're all so good. I mean, they're all far better musicians than I am. You know, as far their timing, you know, I mean, they're just the first time it's all perfect. And I'm like, okay, I need to redo this part a couple times. It's not, you know, they're just, because they're doing this day in, day out. And day in, day out, I'm just more like, you know, playing parts and writing melodies. It's really not about the technical. I never became the, you know, insane pianist that I always wanted to be. It's just too much work. I'm practicing and just get a headache after an hour. So yeah, regarding the rock videos, I recognized right from the beginning that if I was going to do rock music, that I needed to have music videos. And so I started, I found some people to help me to make videos early on, and that was fun, and I learned a lot. But I found that was very expensive, and I didn't always get, you know, what I wanted. I mean, for instance, I went to Ireland and did a 3-part video the song Fractured Soul, which is like this epic, it's a little bit hybrid, epic orchestra. Fractured Soul, Rabbit Hole, and Ashes and Fire, which actually also was charting on Billboard. So I did this 3-part video. It cost $180,000. You know, and I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. You know, and after a while of doing these projects, I was starting to realize that, you know, the way things are changing, and and I'm not always happy, because every time we do a rock video, they're always like, oh, you look great. You know, no matter however I look, they're always like, they don't see it. You know, like I'm like, no, I don't look great. Trust me. I mean, I'm not old, and I just don't look, you know, I don't look that great in this video. It's really important, because like, I know everything else looks great, but like, you know, I have to look okay, you know, whatever, because I'm the artist. It's like, you have to, they just weren't focused on that at all. And not to just be like vain, but it's like, there's a certain level where if it's your video, you know, you shouldn't look, you know, you have to look a certain way. It has to be reasonably, you know. For all those reasons, I decided I'm going to do, you know, I've learned a lot now, all these videos, and I'm going to do it myself. So that's what I've been doing for the last like 10 videos. I have great equipment.
How many videos are there?
There are a lot of the rock videos. There are 20 or so.
Wow.
Yeah. There are a lot. So I decided, like the last album, I did 7 videos. I also did one epic one. The 8th one was I had a new song, Dawn Star. I did an epic video. But so yeah, I decided to do it myself, and it's really fun. So, but once again, it's like I'm just it's always like I've always had just too many things going on. So it's like the samples and the epic music and the rock music and the this and that, and there's one thing after another. And I've written books, and it's just stupid. I do too many things.
You can't stop producing things.
I like producing things, whether they're good or not. You know, I just do it. But the videos, interestingly, it's really fun. It can be stressful, obviously, and there's always all this unknown. But because I'm doing it myself and I'm not using a big crew or anything, I find that I can just redo things, you know, generally, so that I can get it right. So, like the last video, one of the last ones for the song called "Let's Go," it took me 10 days of filming and then looking back and editing and going, and it was a 10 solid, at least 10-hour days of just screwing around to get that done. And most people just I don't think, put that kind of effort into, you know, if it's like a big artist, they have a big crew, but then they just march in, artist comes in, film it, and then they go to edit it. And it's done differently. This is different. I can fix things.
They storyboarded the whole thing before they even showed up. They
Exactly.
knew what it was going to look like before the star showed up.
Yeah, and sometimes you can kind of tell, even some of the big stuff, that it was done fast. Like there's like it looks good and everything. It's, you know, or it's song's great and whatever, but you can kind of tell. So anyway, so that's what I'm doing. So I can do it myself, and it doesn't really cost me much money, and it's I have total control over it, and it's kind of fun. I think a lot of my rock stuff, even though it's rock music, it has a little bit of a theme, there's sort of a bit of a cinematic feel to some of it. So sometimes I have a cool storyline going or something in the video.
So what's the future of epic music for you?
It was never my intention or decision or choice to end Two Steps from Hell. You know, why would I? So obviously, I did my best there, and unfortunately things change, and that's fine. But I really, I don't want to stop. That's been my direction, my main musical direction since, before 1998 or whatever. It's been my thing. I'm going to continue. After Two Steps from Hell ended, I had an album called Heart of the Ocean, and then another one called Dawn Star. And so I'm continuing the tradition. I mean, there are a few really good songs on both those albums. So I have a concert coming up. It's going to be a YouTube only concert. So it's not a touring, because I'm not in a position to figure that out at this point. So what I'm doing is I've already recorded the orchestra and choir, the same one that we always use for all the Two Steps from Hell productions. We're going to have a live concert in the sense that the soloists playing on top are going to play in the U.S. here in L.A. in front of a giant screen of production of the orchestra and choir, because I can't get the two together. So basically, it is a live concert because they're playing live and then they're playing live, but we're just playing at different times, and then we film it. So that's going to be a YouTube concert, coming out. I'm hoping probably April, May, somewhere around there. There are a lot of these, amazing soloists. I have to coordinate the whole thing with them. But I'm really excited because I know the songs that are in that show, and I know that it's really strong. And because, in the Two Steps from Hell tour, there was a certain limit. I mean, Thomas has so many good songs. What are you going to do? So it was literally 2/3 Thomas songs, 1/3 mine, because that made sense, because he has so many good songs that people know that they had to hear. And, and both of us were kind of like, we wanted to play some other songs because like Thomas always wanted to play different songs that really weren't as popular because he thought they were better. Same thing here. I have a bunch of songs that are really strong that just didn't fit in. It's like, how do you fit in all this music? So now I get to do what I want, and the show is really strong, and it has some of the newer songs, and some of these songs have new versions. It sounds really good. And plus, the Two Steps from Hell stuff, we were always forced to slam, compress the crap out of this stuff, as everyone is, even though it's always really bothered me. So I think this will probably be slightly less. It still has to be a certain sound that people, want. So
you mean there's going to be headroom?
There's going to be a little headroom.
What?
A little bit.
No.
Exactly.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Because it's it's the live orchestra. It sounded really good without me compressing too much. It sounds really good. And
are you mixing this?
I'm mixing this. Yes.
Nice.
So I've already pre-mixed the orchestra choir, and then I've had to. There are a couple additional tracks that won't be played live. Just a couple like drum things or whatever. I had to. I've done that, and then all the soloists come in and play their parts. In a live setting together and we just film it, and then that will be the show. And there's some really cool performers. So that's my immediate future. But of course, there's another album I'm working on of epic music that's it's going to be a little different. I think it's a little bit I can't say too much. How would I describe this? It's a little bit genre bending. But just a little bit, but just in a way that's it'll be interesting.
When should we be looking for that one?
Who knows? I'll either be in the fall or I'm in my grave. One of the two.
That's exciting. So you've got the rock, and I saw the Don Starr album. I think I listened to actually most of it, and there was all kinds of huge choirs and all kinds of big moments, and there was all kinds of stuff in there. It actually caught me off guard because I was kind of going, I was listening to stuff before we did this interview, and so, I'm like, rock. Hey, this isn't rock.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's, that's another topic. It's the whole, I do have this problem with the whole rock versus, it's been a problem since the very beginning. There are Two Steps from Hell fans that basically, our fans are certain, tend to be, it's all over the place, but it tends to be a certain type of person who's not like a rock fan, who's not like, immersed in pop or rock music. A lot of them are more into classical music. They're gamers. There's a certain type of fan that, like, when I started doing rock music, are like, what the hell is this? They're just not gonna. They don't. That's fine if they don't want to listen to it. But sometimes it was also it kind of hurt me a little bit because they're like, well, Nick's now he's like the rock guy. Was not my intention. I have that problem like social media. And it's like I have two different genres, and it's like I just split my Instagram into an orchestral one, a new one. Nick Phoenix Epic Official, by the way. The two different genres are tough. Everybody wants to categorize you. So I'm literally split right down the middle between, rock, and I love both of them, and they're both, very, very different.
I want to thank you so much for this time today. I really enjoyed this conversation. We never really knew each other very well, so this has been an opportunity to sort of kind of play a little catch up or whatever over 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
And
it's a shame. Like that's, my biggest regret, I think, with all the work that I've done is that it takes a lot of time, and so there's less time to pursue, friends, personal relationships. And then, I have family, and then there's just less time. And then as you get older, you realize, okay, well, that's, you got to find a balance.
Do we ever find it?
No, I'm never going to find it.
At least as a musician, it seems like a really hard balance.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.